honoring Indigenous veterans on this Saturday night, with ceremonies across the country marking Indigenous Veterans Day.
When we sing those songs, we're connecting with the ancestors.
The tributes to their service and the ongoing push for truth and healing. A new wave of deadly strikes on Ukraine, the city at the heart of the country's infrastructure, now in Russia's crosshairs. Plus, Canadian teams and their canines join the search and rescue mission in hurricane-ravaged Jamaica.
And everybody seems to be helping each other out, doing the best they can.
And Eurovision dreams, how Canada is trying to enter the spotlight in one of the world's biggest music competitions.
Global National, reporting tonight, Nitu Garcha.
From coast to coast to coast, Indigenous veterans and their communities took part in commemorations for the 31st National Indigenous Veterans Day, honoring the courage and service of those Inuit, Métis, and First Nations people in Canada's armed forces throughout history. Good evening and thanks for joining us. The ceremonies feature culture and tradition while honoring a group of veterans whose sacrifice was long overlooked. Moosa Imran reports on how those at a commemoration in Toronto are ensuring their legacy lives on.
November 8th is Indigenous Veterans Day, and Toronto is just one of many cities across the country honoring those who made the ultimate sacrifice. According to Veterans Affairs, more than 12,000 Indigenous people served for Canada in the First and Second World Wars and the Korean War. They couldn't march together as a group or lay wreaths at cenotaphs. This day was established to correct that oversight and recognize the invaluable contributions of First Nations, Métis, and Inuit soldiers.
You know, when we sing those songs, we're connecting with the ancestors.
Philip Cote hosted Saturday's event at Nathan Phillips Square. He says the day is all about honoring the generations who came before.
My great-great-grandfather is Tecumseh, and he defended Canada long before people were thinking about a Veterans Day. But he was the first in many of my ancestors who participated in all the wars over the years.
A number of dignitaries were in attendance, including Lieutenant Governor of Ontario, Edith Dumont.
Today, recognizing the contribution of the Indigenous veterans was an important moment for me as a citizen, as a Lieutenant Governor of Ontario as well, towards reconciliation. It's one step further. So I was happy and moved at the same time by the ceremony.
Toronto Mayor Olivia Chow was also at the ceremony, reflecting on how the past can shape our future.
How do we do that? What action can we take to bring people together so there's less divisiveness, less hatred, less anger? And that's hard to do sometimes.
And it's those lessons from the past, Cote says he hopes to carry on.
I hope that they see that we're keeping their memory alive and that we're thinking with this, you know, because this is the main thing. That they thought with, you know, those ancestors, this is the way they operated.
Moosa Imran, Global News.
And Donna Friesen will anchor our live coverage of the Remembrance Day ceremony in Ottawa on Tuesday morning, starting at 10:30 Eastern, 7:30 Pacific, right here on Global. At least 6 people have reportedly died after overnight Russian missile and drone strikes hit residential and energy sites across Ukraine. The barrage has left hundreds of thousands in the dark and many scrambling for safety. Nathaniel Dove reports on the latest assault and the intensified fighting along Ukraine's eastern front line.
The aftermath of Russian attacks, where first responders scramble to get who they can to safety. Ukraine's government says Russia launched 450 drones and nearly 50 missiles overnight. This resident of the attacked apartment building calls it inhumane. Nearby, Irina Kovtunenko looks at what's left of her home in Pokrovsk. It's too painful to think about, she says. She fled with her 11-year-old son to a new job and safety. The ongoing attacks are part of Russia's campaign to seize Pokrovsk, a regional hub for road, rail, and communications. A Duke University expert says it's the key to other major cities and regions Putin has long coveted.
I think Vladimir Putin can envision a future in which Donald Trump tells the Ukrainians that they will have to abandon Donetsk and Luhansk.
So you would say that Ukraine cannot win that war?
Miracle can happen.
Vital U.S. support for Ukraine again seems to be waning. On Friday, Donald Trump announced sanction exemptions for Hungary so the country can keep buying Russian oil. For months, Trump has railed against Europe for buying Russian oil, supporting its war effort, though only Hungary and Slovakia do so.
So the only pro-peace government is the United States government and the small Hungary in Europe anyway.
Orban has deep connections to the American political right, even speaking at the same conferences.
Viktor Orban is extremely skilled at outreach to the Trump administration, framing himself and Donald Trump as sort of fellow travelers.
If Trump has to choose between helping Ukraine or helping himself, Miles says, Trump's choice is likely clear, once again hurting Ukraine's chances to defend itself. Hard news for Kovtunenko. She wants to go home, she says, but knows she can't. Nathaniel Dove, Global News, Toronto.
Israel has returned the bodies of 15 Palestinians to Gaza, part of a fragile U.S.-brokered ceasefire. The exchange came a day after militants returned the remains of an Argentinian-born Israeli hostage. Under the truce, Israel returns 15 Palestinian bodies for each Israeli hostage recovered. Gaza's health ministry now says more than 69,000 people have been killed since the war began, as teams continue to pull bodies from the rubble and identify the dead. Ireland's Soccer Federation has voted to submit a motion calling on UEFA, soccer's governing body in Europe, to ban Israel from competitions. The motion claims Israel's Football Association violated UEFA rules by organizing clubs in occupied territories and failing to enforce anti-racism policies. UEFA's executive committee is expected to review the proposal when it meets next month in Switzerland. Actor Mike Smith, best known as Bubbles on the TV series Trailer Park Boys, has been charged with sexual assault in connection with an alleged incident from December 2017. The 53-year-old was charged by Halifax Regional Police on October 2nd and is due to appear in court on Monday. The matter dates back to an incident in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. Documents don't specify details of the allegations, which have not been proven in court. As the United States approaches a historic 40-day government shutdown, those reliant on critical food benefits are caught in the middle. Senators convened for a rare Saturday session aimed at ending the impasse, but there are no signs of any breakthrough. Candice Cole reports on the ongoing battle to fully fund the food aid program.
They are appealing to the court to not have to feed people that they promised to feed.
The U.S. Supreme Court has temporarily paused a lower court ruling that required the Trump administration to fully fund the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program known as SNAP by Friday, November 7th. It comes after the Trump administration asked for the deadline to move $4 billion into the program to be pushed back while it appeals the decision. That request was denied by a U.S. appeals court. But the Supreme Court overturned that decision late Friday, a move some legal experts say could help families get the assistance they need as quickly as possible.
What Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson was doing was essentially giving the Court of Appeals a time to make a decision, an informed decision that was not rushed and that allows potentially the full funding of the $4 billion for SNAP benefits for the month of November.
But as the courts weigh what to do, 42 million Americans are still scrambling to feed their families after SNAP benefits ran out November 1st due to the ongoing government shutdown.
It's not okay, but you know what? I think God is using me as a testimony so I can tell everybody, you know, it's going to be fine. It's going to take some time, but it's going to be fine, for sure, yeah.
And food pantries are stretched to the limit.
The problem is this is not going to be sustainable if this shutdown goes on for very long. And so it's just really important that, you know, we sort of figure out a way to get people the help they need.
The temporary pause will expire 48 hours after the U.S. Appeals Court reaches a decision. If it upholds the lower court's ruling mandating Trump to fully fund SNAP, it's still unclear how long it will take for those benefits to reach recipients. Candice Cole, Global News, Washington.
The government shutdown has forced more flight cancellations across the U.S. today. More than 1,000 flights were scrubbed at 40 of the nation's busiest airports. The mandated slowdown started yesterday. So far, it hasn't caused any widespread disruptions globally. The U.S. Federal Aviation Administration has issued an emergency directive requiring inspections on all MD-11 cargo planes after a deadly crash in Kentucky this week. On Tuesday, a United Parcel Service MD-11 crashed moments after takeoff from Louisville's International Airport. At least 14 people died. UPS and FedEx already grounded the aircraft out of an abundance of caution. The FAA says the left-handed engine and pylon detached from the airplane before takeoff. Investigators are trying to determine the cause of the detachment. BC search and rescue teams in Jamaica coming up, how their specially trained dogs are helping find survivors. Plus, the new threat looming over already devastated regions of Southeast Asia. Typhoon Kalmagi continued its path of destruction Friday, slamming into Vietnam's coast, leaving at least 5 people dead. More than 1 million homes are without power, and several people remain missing. In the Philippines, at least 200 people were killed, and more than 100 are still missing in the wake of the typhoon. Now the region is bracing for another threat. Typhoon Feng Wong expected to strengthen into a super typhoon before hitting the Philippines' main island of Luzon Sunday night. Scenes of widespread devastation from a town in southern Brazil after a tornado ripped through the community, killing 6 people. More than 400 others were also injured, while about 1,000 are now displaced. Local officials say the tornado reached wind speeds of up to 250 kilometers an hour. More than half of the town's buildings were damaged or destroyed. The Brazilian government says federal officials are now on their way to support relief efforts. A volunteer search and rescue team from Burnaby, BC, and their specially trained dogs are on the ground in hurricane-ravaged Jamaica. The team has been traveling from town to town searching for victims and survivors in the rubble 11 days after Hurricane Melissa roared ashore. Taya Fast reports.
17 members of Burnaby's volunteer urban search and rescue team are now on the ground in Jamaica, racing into communities flattened by Hurricane Melissa. They're among the first trained search teams to reach some of the hardest hit areas.
We have been moving throughout the parishes. Right now we are in St. James and just going to all the locations within those smaller communities that have kind of been ravaged by the hurricane.
The damage is catastrophic. Entire neighborhoods have been torn apart.
The devastation is pretty widespread throughout Western Jamaica. Everything from power lines being down, power poles, trees. A lot of people have lost the roofs on their homes. 3 canine teams are leading searches through massive piles of debris, while part of the group is providing medical care in community-run shelters and schools. Canines are Daisy, Ruben, and Pele. So they're trained to detect both live and deceased victims. And basically, when we get to an area where we've had a report of missing persons, our first step is to send out our canine teams, and they'll help kind of narrow down the search area and try to pinpoint where somebody might be.
With infrastructure shattered across the 26 impacted communities, communication and ground transportation are nearly non-existent.
The islands got hit so hard that comms and logistics have been the most difficult thing to have search and rescue and medevacs taking place.
Still, they say residents are rallying and helping guide search teams towards people who may still be missing.
People we've met, despite very difficult conditions, have been very resilient and friendly, and everybody seems to be helping each other out and doing the best they can in a tough situation.
For now, crews will continue to move to other communities where help has been slow to reach. Taya Fast, Global News.
A container ship that ran aground on Newfoundland's west coast in February is now being battered by extreme weather. High winds and rough seas have caused what the Canadian Coast Guard calls significant movement in the ship's bow and stern. Debris is visible in the water and along the shoreline. Crews are on site assessing the damage. Researchers find microplastics in a popular Atlantic seafood. Ahead, the new questions being raised about plastic pollution. In our modern world, plastics are everywhere, from food containers to product packaging and even in our clothing. And when they break down, they leave microplastics, tiny fragments often just a fraction of the width of a human hair. A new study by Dalhousie University has even detected them in lobster. Heidi Petrocic explains what the researchers found and why they say it's a call to action.
They were banded just like this.
It's a case researchers in Nova Scotia wanted to crack, whether microplastics are finding their way into this East Coast delicacy.
We wanted to study this, knowing it's important for Nova Scotia and Atlantic Canada.
So they cooked the lobster, then analyzed the tail meat using a special dye that binds to microplastics, then glows under fluorescent light. The result?
They were present in like 100% of the lobsters.
And most of the microplastics were the tiny microplastics below 4 microns.
There's a female. And it's not just in lobster. Other studies have found microscopic bits of plastic in other seafoods too, and in meats and beverages, all coming from discarded plastics, fishing gear, even what we wear.
We've shown that the plastic pollution crisis isn't just removed from us. It's not just like out in the ocean. It's also ending up on our dinner plates.
What that does for our health, the researchers say, is still under investigation. Microplastics have been found in our own bodies, and some observational studies have linked them to increased risk of cancer, cardiovascular, and reproductive issues.
Our dependency on plastics and plastic materials for convenience has just grown exponentially since the 1950s. Even with good intentions, to find alternatives at that scale is really quite difficult right now.
He says the world needs to find ways to reduce reliance on plastic. The United Nations has been trying to establish a world-first treaty to cut down on its production, but so far that has remained out of reach. Heidi Petrocic, Global News, Halifax.
LA Dodgers pitcher Alex Vesia has revealed why he was unable to play in the World Series. In an Instagram post, Vesia and his wife confirmed the death of their newborn daughter, Sterling, saying there are no words to describe the pain they're going through, but they cherish every second they had with her. They also thanked the Dodger Nation, Blue Jays organization, and all baseball fans for their love and support. During the World Series, the Blue Jays relief pitchers all wore Vesia's number, 51, on their ball caps. Could Canada soon take the Eurovision stage? Next, why a federal budget item has music fans tuning in.
Here I go, here I go, here I go again, girls, what's my weakness? Okay, then chill.
90s hip-hop trio Salt and Peppa will be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame tonight. The ceremony will honor 7 groups or individuals spanning 7 decades of music. Chubby Checker, Joe Cocker, Cyndi Lauper, Soundgarden, and the White Stripes are among the inductees. Hip-hop duo Outkast will also be recognized. One of the world's biggest and longest-running televised music events could soon be widening its web of talent. The Eurovision contest features mostly European performers, but the federal government is making a push to add some Canadian content. Taria Isri explains.
Fans, fireworks, and fierce competition. It's Europe's version of the Super Bowl and could one day include Canada.
We want Canadian culture on a global stage. Best culture in the world, best music in the world. I think Europe deserves to see it too.
The federal budget struck an unexpected note, with the Carney government saying it's focused on working with CBC Radio Canada to explore participation in Eurovision.
It's hugely popular. It's renowned for being kitsch, for being campy, for also reflecting politics and society in Europe.
Eurovision started almost 70 years ago, uniting the continent post-war and introducing the world to the likes of ABBA and Celine Dion. The Quebec superstar won under Switzerland's flag in 1988. Fast forward to today, and the contest attracts 160 million viewers.
It's pretty hard not to get into it because everybody goes crazy for it here. And it's infectious. It's a really fun time.
While Canadians watch and sometimes compete, we're not officially part of the competition, unlike fellow Commonwealth member Australia, which joined in 2015.
And as the most European of the non-European countries, Canada looks first to the European Union.
In the midst of the trade war with the U.S., Prime Minister Mark Carney is trying to boost ties with like-minded countries. He's also a personal fan of Eurovision. Finance Minister François-Philippe Champagne told Global News Europe is open to the idea.
This was something that was asked by the people who participate, and I think it's a platform for Canada to shine.
The public broadcaster considered joining in the past, but called the prospect prohibitively expensive.
It's super fun to watch, but would there be interest in watching it? To me, that's the biggest question.
And whether it's a pitch, Canadians are open to hearing. Taria Isri, Global News, Montreal.
And that is Global National for this Saturday night. I'm Neetu Garcha. Tonight's Your Canada showcases the Dingle in Halifax, Cranbrook, BC, and Trossachs, Saskatchewan. Keep them coming. Send your pictures of Canadian pride to Global National at globalnews.ca. Have a great night.